Hi friends! Today we're talking about selecting replacement bucks, the criteria we use to qualify bucks as breeding stock, and we'll walk through the sorting process and how we handled it this year. I'll also be sharing some interesting things we observed while sorting and how it's going to affect future decisions and data collection. Let's get to it! Hey friends! Welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey friends! Can you believe we're already at episode 76 of the Get Goatwise podcast? We're marching toward 100 episodes, and I'd love to celebrate by hitting 100 reviews on Apple Podcasts. If this podcast has encouraged you or helped you raise livestock with confidence, would you take 30 seconds to leave a review? Just search Get Goatwise on Apple Podcasts, scroll down to Ratings and Reviews, tap Write a Review, give me some stars, and share a quick thought. Your review helps more families discover the show, which means more people taking control of their food supply, and that's what this is all about. Here's what's happening on the ranch. We had a few more frosty mornings this week, and the days are getting shorter. I'm milking earlier so I can finish up before dark. My older dairy does, Betty and Wilma, are nearing retirement. They were the first dairy does I stand trained from the very beginning, and I've spent a lot of time with them over the years. I can't really imagine milking time without them, but as it always does, time passes and things change. So I'm looking at my options for adding in new dairy does for next year. Farmers Market is finished up for the year, and I'm relieved and sad. It's a lot of work to do markets, so I'm relieved to know I'll be getting a break from that for a little while, but I'm also sad because I met so many really great people and I'll miss seeing them each week. The roosters were harvested over the weekend. My helpers turned their favorite one loose to free range with the other roosters, so I guess we have 4 roosters now, if he's smart enough to survive the dogs. We finished up rotational grazing the big herd in the pasture we were in, and then we ran them into a night trap for a couple days while we sorted kids. And we'll be headed to a new pasture to graze until the frost shuts us down, probably mid-October. Let's talk about what we were trying to accomplish on Saturday sorting the goats and how that went, and some interesting things that came up. The primary goal was to select replacement bucks and then get everything else banded. After that, I wanted to get weights on everything if we could. Getting everything weighed on the same day gives me a consistent data point to work from in my records and calculations. We used our Lakeland working facility, which makes everything so much easier. First, we ran the whole group through and sorted the kids off into the barn and the does back to their pen. Then we set up the scale and ran the does back through to weigh them. I haven't put the numbers on the spreadsheet yet, but just looking through them, there's quite a bit of variation, which is to be expected between does that are raising singles versus twins. I didn't have that information on my record sheet, so I don't know if that's the reason or not, but it did get me thinking that I'm probably going to have to get weights on the does right before breeding to use in my calculation for pounds of kid weaned per pound of doe. Here's why. If I use Saturday's weights, The result of a doe raising twins will be exaggerated because not only will she have the weight of 2 kids instead of 1, but she likely weighs less right now because of the demands on her body from feeding 2 kids. So I don't think that's an accurate representation of what I'm trying to calculate. The doe's weight is important because we're extrapolating feed consumption based on her weight. So if the demands of lactation have caused her to lose weight, we won't be correct on her expected feed consumption. I think a better representation is to get her weight in December right before breeding. That way, all of the does have dried off and had a chance to recover body weight lost from lactation. Most years, the does raising twins pack on weight pretty fast once the kids are weaned, and when it's time to put the bucks in, the does are looking more consistent in weight than they do at weaning time. I think this will be a better benchmark weight to use because it will give us a more accurate point from which to estimate feed intake for each doe for the year. After the does were all weighed, we ran the kids back through, sorting buck kids from doe kids and verifying the recorded gender. Buck kids were weighed and sorted back into the barn, and doe kids were weighed, the gender confirmed, and then sent back in with the doe herd. At kidding, doe kids get their official tag in the right ear and buck kids get theirs in the left. This makes sorting easy, but we are human and we make mistakes. So when each doe kid was on the scale, we verified that she was indeed a doe before putting her back with the herd. The weight on these kids wasn't an official weaning weight because only the buck kids were getting weaned that day, but for consistency, we'll use that weight in my calculation for pounds of kid weaned per pound of doe. With the new handling facility and how easy it is to run the goats through, we may go ahead and get another weight on the rest of the kids when they're weaned in a few more weeks or whenever the frost shuts us down with electric netting and we start feeding hay. Once that sort was done, we started selecting the replacement bucks. All of the buck kids were in the barn, so we walked through them and picked the visual standouts based on growth, health, maturity, and overall look. As we made selections, I checked their tag number with the data we collected at kidding to see if they met the criteria for breeding stock. We selected 14 bucks, 3 boar, and 11 Spanish, then we banded the rest of the buck kids and put them back with their moms. I was a little surprised that we only picked 3 boar bucks. Remember, though, that our criteria are strict, and we're not selling bucks that don't meet it. In the boar herd, even though we've made vast improvements, there's still plenty of room to do better. So we're sticking to the traits that we think are important. To make the cut, kids must be born as a multiple, unassisted, dam raised, mothered well, have a 1x1 teat structure, and a perfect bite. Right now, the biggest factor eliminating many of our boar kids from staying as breeding stock is teat structure. We didn't have a single bad mouth this year. That means overbite or underbite. And we haven't had for years, so that's pretty good. Overall, udder structure has improved dramatically, and we're now expecting a perfect 1x1 for breeding purposes. Most of the Spanish kids meet the criteria easily, and it comes down to growth, healthy appearance, and how good their mom is to decide who stays and who gets banded. 2 interesting things came up while we were sorting buck kids. First, the maturity of the Spanish bucks. These Spanish bucks seem to mature faster than the boar bucks, and I thought we were clear as far as avoiding accidental early breeding, but I'm not sure we did. The last time we had early kids, they were born in late March, so I figured we were ahead of the bucks by a whole month. But I might be wrong. The professionals say they shouldn't be able to breed until 4 months old, but many of them were trying. None of them are 4 months old yet, and I hope we got them sorted soon enough. I guess we'll find out in February. If any of the buck kids successfully bred something, it'll have to be born by February 20th. The second thing was how good the wethers looked. Remember how we banded some at birth? Those were kids that didn't meet the criteria for one reason or another, and so I banded them as soon as we knew they weren't buck prospects, usually before they were 24 hours old. My oldest daughter was helping with a lot of the tagging during kidding, and she didn't want the responsibility of deciding if a kid should be banded or not, so we ended up with more kids left intact than I had planned. But the interesting part was how good the banded kids looked. They had grown like crazy. In fact, when we were sorting in the buck pen, I kept picking prospect bucks that had already been banded based on their growth and how healthy they looked. It'll take a few more years of early banding to know if this year was an exception or if these buck kids handle banding at a young age better than when they're older. And there is some data to suggest that, so we're trying it. A while back, I did a whole episode about early and late banding. That was episode 46, and I'll link it in the show notes. I'm glad to have the buck sorting finished up, and now those buck kids will have all the hay they want for a month or so before they go to their new homes. I hope this episode helps you decide how to select replacement bucks, what criteria to consider, and why we choose so carefully. If you have any questions, come on over to the community and start a conversation. That's at getgoatwise.com/community. See you next week. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.